what I want to talk about at this moment is really the looming crisis that we as a city, and I would suggest as a state, given the size of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia School District, the impact potentially on the surrounding counties, the impact to our economy for quite possibly the next decade or two. If the level of layoffs, the devastation to the school district's budget, as outlined by Dr. Hite and the SRC in the past week or so, were to ever come to fruition. We're talking about basically ending school as any of us have known. When you think about the number of people, and these are real people, real lives, real circumstances, nearly 3,800 people potentially losing their jobs. And what we're talking about is assistant principals, guidance counselors, secretaries, librarians, support staff and noontime aides, sports and extracurricular activities, art and music. Class sizes will go to their maximums under the contract. That's 30 per class in K to 3, 33 students per class for all the other grades. In the school, student nurse ratio would go to 1 to 1,500. That would be devastating for our students, for our parents, for our city to have that kind of budgetary impact and personnel impact. It will deteriorate the true quality of education that our young people deserve, and all of that could be prevented certainly by the actions of responsible adults. There are a series of steps that need to be taken. We know that the school district has a $304 million structural deficit. Should that deficit that gap closed, we also know that Dr. Hite and his team and the SRC have laid out now for the first time a 5-year plan that would show structural balance all through those 5 years if they're able to fill the $304 million gap. And so what we're really also talking about is 1,900 support staff, 668 teachers, 313 secretaries, 284 counselors. I've been in a number of schools recently, and one of my recent visits was up to Girls High. And one of the 11th graders pointed out something that had not, quite honestly, quite yet hit me. Because as an 11th grader, she's of course thinking about 12th grade and going on to college. The guidance counselors are the folks who actually help the students to send their transcripts to the schools that they're interested in, or help them in other ways going through that process. And that's at 11th grade, focused on certainly 12th grade. But every grade needs the folks who help them to have a high-quality education. The school district has made a series of requests to fill this budget. $60 million requested from the city, $120 million requested from the state, and about $120 million or so in savings they need to accomplish through negotiating with a variety of unions and work rule changes and reforms that also help with the operational aspects of making schools the great places that we want them to be. So in the city level at least, this week really primarily is the week of action, the week of actions that we need to be taken, and whether that's voting bills out of committee that might still be in committee, or if they're up for second reading and final passage to take action there. With regard to the Commonwealth, I've had a number of conversations with legislators, caucus leaders, the governor's office as well, and I think the one thing that comes through in all of those conversations is that it's not just Philadelphia that has financial challenges in terms of its budget, that other school districts in Pennsylvania are facing somewhat similar circumstances. We're larger, our numbers are bigger, but financial distress is financial distress. Second, that there is in many quarters a true interest and effort to work together in a spirit of cooperation to figure out, now speaking specifically about Philadelphia, to figure out how do we address the Philadelphia challenge, not in a piecemeal fashion, but in a more comprehensive way. And I look forward to continued conversations with members of the General Assembly and the Governor's Office and City Council about how do we do this together. That adults working together on behalf of children will be the best things that any of us will do in our respective elective and political careers, and that this is the responsibility of adults to look out for our children and try to provide them with the investment that needs to be made in education at this time on behalf of the children and the economy of the city of Philadelphia. So this should be a week of action, and I think everyone knows what their role is and what actions need to be taken. With that, I'll try to answer any questions.
Mayor Troy, Jan, and myself in covering this, I'm sure they would agree that we have yet to find a single city council member supportive of the increase in the liquor by the drink tax, while obviously, as you know, they have moved forward with the cigarette tax. Why have you, in the week since you announced your proposal, been unable to gather council support for this?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's just us that has to gather support. As you rightly pointed out, Mike, the cigarette tax came through the council committee. I don't run the city council. We are partners in government. We have 17 independently elected people who have to make up their own minds about how much funding they want to try to provide for the school district, for the school children of the city of Philadelphia, and invest in their future. So I don't know what your conversations have been with individual members. I'm not going to talk about what my conversations have been, but when you get elected to office, you have an individual responsibility to do your job and to use your best judgment in terms of what you think you should do. But it seems to me that the responsible thing to do is to try to provide as much funding to invest in the education of our children. Today is Monday. This is a committee hearing on Wednesday, and hopefully votes will be taken on Thursday. So it's a lot of time between now and Wednesday, Thursday.
School districts across the state are facing budget issues, as you mentioned.
Many are.
Many of them have raised property tax. There may be at work. Everybody would like to get more money from Harrisburg. Why should Philly get it over them?
Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, we've raised taxes in the city twice in the last 2 years, and the use and occupancy tax. We've increased city funding to public schools by $90 million since FY10. What we're asking Harrisburg for, at least at the city level, is authorization to enact two new taxes here in the city. That doesn't cost Harrisburg a dime. That is merely providing authorization. Second, there is a constitutional provision that indicates that the Commonwealth is responsible for the fair and efficient education system all across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And as I mentioned, if you talk to legislators outside of Philadelphia, they will tell you that increasingly there are concerns in those school districts, 75% of whom, I believe, have also increased property taxes in the last couple of years because of shortfalls in state funding. So the state has a role to play, they have a constitutional obligation, but that all points out the larger issue and the slightly longer term issue. I don't think it'll get resolved in the next couple of weeks, but the longer term issue is that Pennsylvania is one of only 3 states in the United States of America that does not use a student-weighted, population-based formula to distribute funds for public education in the first place. And that should be really the next challenge for all of us, which is fixing the education funding formula in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Everyone will benefit, pretty much everyone will benefit from that change.
Some of the teachers and counselors we spoke to on Friday that received their pay slips, or at least warning that it's coming, said that they feel that the students of Philadelphia are left out when it comes to education. The kids in the burbs get more than the kids in Philadelphia. My question is, do you agree with that?
Well, I don't know the funding formula for every school district in the Commonwealth. We have 500 of them. What I do know is that nearby school districts do in fact spend more to educate their children than we do. That is a function of the combination of local taxes and state revenues that they get. So, if you were to live in a school district or a county outside of Philadelphia, what you would probably also see is a pretty enormous increase in the amount of taxes that you pay. We've raised taxes twice in the last 2 years. I think the taxpayers, these are primarily property taxes that fund those systems out there. The taxpayers here in Philadelphia, in many instances, rightly so, have felt that with 2 straight years of pretty significant increases, that is not a particular source. But we've already put out again, a proposal to at least address what was asked for by the school district to the city of Philadelphia, which is a $95 million package. So we are trying to do our part here locally, but funding schools, the two primary funders are the city and the state.
Mayor, if liquor doesn't go through and the state doesn't give you permission for cigarettes, would you be willing to entertain marinas?
I'm not going to speculate on the different pieces floating around, and I'm not going to make any assumptions about what's going to go forward or what's not going to go forward. The bills are all out there. I think all the elected officials know what the stakes are and know what the challenges are. And they also, certainly by now, know what the consequences are to not having this funding and in the levels that have been requested. There's a package on the table. It will allow for at least the city to do its part. And again, we're looking for partnership with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania so that all together that we can solve a requested $180 million request between the city and the state.
What's your administration doing now in the wake of the building collapse to ensure that safety is being met?
I want to deal with schools, so let's finish up on schools, and I'll try to answer any other questions that folks might have.
Mayor, how desperate a moment is this? Are you confident that the funding will come through to the schools, or do you have a serious concern that it's not going to happen?
Well, I'm always concerned. You never know what's going to happen in any legislative environment. The stakes are very, very high. This is a very serious moment of crisis for school students and parents and the entire school system, whether district managed schools or charter managed schools. We took a 7% cut this year and possibly a 12% cut if this budget is implemented. So, of course, I'm very, very concerned. I cannot predict the future, but what I can do is work hard every day, continue to make the case for the citizens of this city. We've always known from the start this is going to be an uphill battle, but, here's the thing. We've faced in different environments greater challenges, and when adults decide to do something, they can get it done, regardless of the politics or the circumstances. I cannot imagine anything more important than investing in the education of our young people here in Philadelphia.
Mayor, in rejecting, I realize
We couldn't take
the council members who are publicly opposed to the increase in the liquor by the drink tax say that some of the smaller taverns and proprietors that hurt them, and B, that the city needs to do a better job in collecting the existing liquor tax. Simply, I know your administration claims upwards of 90% collection.
93.5% collection.
But how do you rebut those two concerns in regards to?
Well, in 1994, when I was a member of City Council and voted for the liquor by the drink tax the first time, many of the same arguments were made. I think none of which ever actually played out to fruition. That's on the impact that it might have on small establishments, wherever they might be. We've heard this argument many, many times before. We heard the same argument with regard to smoking ban. So that's that. The second, the collection rate, as detailed in a letter signed by Revenue Commissioner Karina Tolson, is that 93.5% of the liquor tax gets collected yearly. So, I've heard these rumors that folks have been spreading around. No one's ever been able to actually get to the source of the rumor, or more importantly, provide any data, actual data that indicates that there's any truth to that. So 93.5%, fairly high. Obviously, you want to be at 100%, but nowhere near what some folks have been talking about.
And Mayor, you need state enabling legislation to get a liquor by the drink tax increase and cigarette tax increase. On the cigarette tax increase, has there been any movement recently? I was told there was a letter signed by Council President Clark and Cheryl Parker saying that they...
There was a letter signed by three of us, Council President Clark, Chairman Pedro Ramos, and myself, all signed the same letter to Chairwoman Parker, who is the chair of the House Philadelphia delegation, and to Chairwoman Kitchen, who is the Philadelphia Senate delegation chair, indicating our support for both pieces of legislation, I believe both of which have been introduced in the Senate.
And so do you feel like that's a step forward?
That is certainly a step forward. I think that, as we have in the past when we've had legislation up in Harrisburg, our own delegation has asked for letters to be signed by the appropriate parties indicating support. That is a good step. Introduction is a good step. Passage, obviously better. But, this is a step-by-step process involving a lot of people, requiring a lot of coordination.
And is there a deadline for the state enabling legislation? When does that need to be passed by?
Well, obviously, we'd like it sooner than later, because the sooner it will hopefully be passed, the sooner we could implement. You know that there are different implementation dates or anticipated implementation dates for the two measures. It would be July 1 for the liquor tax, should that pass, and January 1st, 2014 for the cigarette tax. Because it would be a new tax for us, we know that there's a certain amount of ramp-up time to be able to implement it.
Can you talk a little bit about the collapse of your administration is doing now to make sure that it doesn't happen again?
Well, we made a pretty extensive series of announcements on Friday, laying out some new processes and procedures related to both permitting as well as the inspection process and much closer interaction between contractors or people actually doing the work and the Department of License and Inspections, new standards for how someone would get a permit, additional information that we want to have up front, and then steps to be taken in between. In addition, of course, there are multiple investigations that have started, probably since Friday when the site was released by the fire department. That is the fire marshal, Department of License and Inspections, police department, OSHA, and as I announced on Friday, the inspector general. So there's a lot of activity, and obviously we need to let everyone do their job, do their work, do their part, and we'll learn a great deal from that. But I think the announcement, as information was starting to come forward on Friday afternoon, indicating that a warrant had been put out for the individual who was actually operating the equipment, and then he turned himself in, I guess, on Saturday. I would say to you that that will take everything in a very, very different direction. When you have someone who was the operator, now with 6 charges of, I believe, involuntary manslaughter, 13 charges of, I think, either reckless endangerment or risking catastrophe, those kinds of charges really do then start to narrow in on personal responsibility, actions of the individual, and you have an operator, you have a contractor, and you have an owner. And it's that trio that I think most of the focus should be on, and where you're probably going to find most of your responsibility. Again, as a government, there are always things that we can do, there are things we must do, and we on a perfect day, that we can do better. But in the end, I think we may come to the conclusion that but for the actions of the person operating that equipment, it's quite possible that that wall would still be up, would not have fallen, and we would not have 6 people who lost their lives. With that in mind, and then I am going to leave, let me just suggest to all of you that starting with yesterday in a memorial service, it appears that for the most part during the course of this week, there will be a variety of either services or funerals or other engagements with the families. And I just want to ask again, as I have on a couple occasions, let's all try to be mindful of the fact that these families are grieving, that they're going to relive much of this tragedy through the things that they might hear or see or read in your various publications. And I'm just again asking for your sensitivity with regard to these grieving families in terms of coverage and interaction and those kinds of things. I understand you all have a job to do, But I would certainly hope that in the effort to be excellent in our jobs, that we don't lose the last bits of human sensitivity and humanity, in that any one of us would probably not appreciate some of the things that have happened over the last couple of days, if in the unfortunate incident it was any one of your family members. I'm sure you would want things handled differently. So,
Mayor, are you
Do you hold
concerned
anybody in your
that
administration
the city
responsible?
council's investigation is going to overlap too much into the official investigations by the DA and OSHA, as well as your own Inspector General?
impossible for me to predict something like that. I'm sure that council will be sensitive in their work and understanding that in some of these instances, I mean, you have law enforcement personnel, you have law enforcement activity and actions and investigations, and that all of us have to be mindful of making sure that whatever it is that any one group is doing, that we don't interfere with the legal process that is going on, especially by the law enforcement entities.
Do you hold anyone in your administration responsible for this? You're saying that
I was not aware. I was at the memorial service yesterday, and apparently the notice about this came out while that service was going on. So, I subsequently read the release. I don't have any additional information about it, or what kind of where it came from, or what the council is trying to accomplish. I read the release, but I don't know any more about it.
so you don't hold anyone in your administration responsible for this? You're saying that there's things that you guys could have done differently?
Two questions at the same time.
Are you concerned that the investigation will be critical of the administration's?
We want to get to the truth, and the truth will be the truth, whatever it is. And if there's, legitimate criticism, then that's what it will be. Our responsibility, certainly at that point, is to take whatever reports come in, whether it's from the 5 entities that I've mentioned or to council special committee. The point for us is take the information, do something with it, and make things better.
Okay,
So you hold anyone in your administration responsible?